Hey all, Trevor here with Red Leaf, and today we're going to be reviewing the Sage and Sour Terp Slush from the folks over at Violet Tourist. I'm really excited to break down what this concentrate has to offer as we go through our Puffco, Burnt Hexagon rig, as well as our Cheech rig a couple of times for this review. Without any further ado, let's get our intro in here with the details and macro video kicking off this full review. Welcome back, everyone. And as we said in the intro, today we are reviewing the Sage and Sour Terp Slush from the folks over at Violet Tourist. We're going to get that Macron video in here right now and quickly go over the details for this concentrate. It came in with a THC total of 74.8%, a CBD total of 1.0%, terpene total of 9.8%, and the package date of March 5th, 2024. Now, as you see in this video, it doesn't have an overwhelming, like a wet kinetic sand texture, but instead more of a chunky diamonds and sauce blend. For me, I see that as an upgrade from the Terp Slush into a little bit more of a diamonds and sauce offering. In a little bit smaller diamond formulation in here, but overall a very nice consistency and a good concentrate to work with. I could see this spreading onto a paper for your joints really easily, and I didn't find an overwhelming difficulty when working with this concentrate to get it into my rigs. It did stick to the tools a little bit, but you apply just a touch of heat and it slides right off. Now when it comes to the nose, I'm not finding anything super overwhelming. Aromatically, it definitely has just a hint of like a pine cleaner experience. Like it's a little bit of a chem and a little bit of that piney fresh offering that leans a little bit more towards like that artificial cleaner experience, that pine salt kind of aroma. Still a really nice presentation. When we got into our rigs and actually started dabbing this, we started things off with a Puffco. I found it to be relatively lacking on the flavor side of things, but the high and the effects walloped my overall kind of headband area on my cap immediately with that first Puffco draw. It was really smooth, good inhale, good exhale, no real notable flavors. Then when we moved over to the Cheech rig with the cold start, very similar offering on that one as well. And you guys can see the high is still having an effect here. It is definitely taking some time and focus to work through exactly what I want to say to you all. A really smooth draw, lacking that flavor profile that I'm looking for. When we went and we hit it with a cool down dab, that intense vapor production and a little bit of a heavier flavor profile give us a lighter kind of woodsy, sweet, fresh experience. Nothing any more descriptive or definitive than that. It was very light and just kind of hinting towards an experience for that flavor profile more so than actually hitting you on the tongue and giving you that wallop of flavor. A good experience of a concentrate like that would have been what we reviewed 2 weeks ago with that orange juice cured resin. Now, with that being said, this is still a very smooth and enjoyable experience, even with that heavier vapor production that we got with the cool down. Now, when we went to the high temp, I found the most flavorful experience. It gave me a very heavy gas in that sense of like acidic and almost like when you're filling your tank up and it's raining outside, you get that combination of kind of sweet, gassy aromas, but you have that fresh springtime kind of vibrance to it. That's exactly what I got with the high temp. With the cool down, I found it was hinting towards that, but couldn't really deliver that full experience. So this definitely has the terpene profile that leans in towards the sage and sour experience that I've enjoyed in the past when I've smoked it in flower. It's not super heavy on that more hazy and hay kind of flavor profile that I found in some of the other phenotypes of Sage and Sour. Overall, 7s out of a 10 for each of the methods of consumption are going to be fair. And the biggest reason for that single point lacking is it just doesn't have a dominant flavor profile for me. It is a very effective experience when smoked. Very effective experience when smoked. But it just doesn't have the flavor profile to follow along with it. I'd have to add something to it to give me that kind of flavor experience to enjoy while I'm waiting for those effects to kick in. Because I'm one of those people that if I need to wait a couple minutes for the full-bodied effects to roll in, I want to have a nice mouth-watering offering to keep me distracted until those effects come on. Because I'm using this medicinally 9 times out of 10. And that 10th time, well, I want it to taste good if I'm just having a little bit of fun while I'm smoking. When we get over to the high, I'm going to give it an 8 out of a 10. The big reason why I'm going to knock it from a 9 out of a 10 to an 8 out of a 10 is I got a very strong and dominant cerebral kind of headache. So very forecap of your skull, that kind of front half, it started to get achy after only the second dab. So like many other Sage and Sour experiences, I need to be careful with how much I consume in a single period of time. Now, adding it into a joint that is a Sage and Sour or like a Lemon Z or any of those other genetics that have that similar kind of terpene profile or effect, I'd be okay with. Having it as that additive to one of those genetics that have a similar terpene profile and effect wouldn't be very good for me. So it's that kind of sensitivity. I can take a dab, maybe 2 of it, but then I kind of like I have to avoid that terpene profile for the rest of the day, or I'll start to get intensive headaches and just overall discomfort. So for me, that's why I can pull it from the 9 out of a 10 to an 8 out of a 10, just because it's not as enjoyable as I was hoping for it to be. But similar effects to those diamonds that we reviewed last week, where it has a very cerebral, euphoric, and kind of distractibility to the high. I'll be honest, I recorded the actual review itself in the sense of dropping the dabs about an hour and a half ago. And then I've been sitting here reading Elantris by Brandon Sanderson for, well, the 45 minutes of me dropping those dabs and giving my lungs time to recover. And then the hour and a half after that, I was distracted in the world of Elantris. So distractibility, definitely a factor in this experience. It is very full-bodied in that effect too. Like while I was reading, I felt I was in the world. Like my ability to be imaginative and creative and just overall live in that world that I was reading about is very much there. Now, if you had an art project where you had the outlines laid out, but you were inlaying color, or you were having a paint by numbers for people who aren't quite as artistically inclined, or something like that, where you're just adding details to something that already has a structure to it, you could just fully engage and disappear into that world. And that's where, like, there's video game genetics and then there's book genetics. And this one, I would say, falls more into that book. Not really a movie or a TV show. Like, this has to have something that's emotionally engaging to go alongside with that like attention grabbing and holding experience. And this genetic is definitely something I'm going to be dropping a couple of big dabs of before I go to the airport, because I'm going to be done Elantris before I fly out to Toronto. And even though this video will be uploaded after I come back from Toronto, I'm going to be working on like I think it's a 1,300 page book from Brandon Sanderson, the beginning of the Stormlight Archive, his kind of magnum opus series. This genetic is going to help me just cruise through those 6 hours of reading if I wanted to. I'd even have to sneak a little washroom pop-up with that and a portable vaporizer, if you know what I mean. Now, with that being said, an 8 out of a 10 for the high is a fair score. It's very purposeful, but it's one of those genetics where I have to use it sparingly. I have to use it sparingly because that enjoyability can go into overconsumption and a just unenjoyable experience. So for those of you who have had an opportunity to try this or have a similar sensitivity that I do to certain genetics, let me know what genetics you're sensitive towards or what your thoughts are on the Sage and Sour Terp Slush, because personally, I'd recommend it. But it's one of those ones that you pull out once every 3 or 4 days, not once every day. That being said, 36 out of 50 is what this is going to score for the overall. Definitely enjoyable experience, and I'm highly, highly excited for the Headband and the Girl Scout cookies that we're going to be reviewing tomorrow and Saturday. So please stick around, click that subscribe button, and ring the bell notification so you can get notified when those 2 reviews go live, as well as any other content I have for you guys. Now, with that being said, down below we have 2 videos for you. One's the most recommended, the other one's the most recently uploaded. Please click on either of those or anything else that I have to offer under it. But for now, cheers, and I will see you in the next one.